One of the potato pie, I think is really cooked, and I'm going to get it onto this table. I've got a couple of these down because it's going to be amazingly hot. In fact, I'll put 3 of them down. Wow. Okay. It's very, very, very hot. And I'm also going to get the, I'll get rid of these things and hang them up actually. That takes you through the technology of what was our local bread. And this was one of the slowest foods that you've ever come across. It does take quite a lot of time to actually to make them. I'm struggling here. Okay. And
presumably it wasn't slow for reverse reasons, was it? Because there was a lot of time on their hands. Presumably it was because of the materials they were using. That's the only way of doing it, is it?
yeah, well actually, there's a lot of work involved in making them. I mean, it takes, it probably takes about 15 minutes to make one before you even get it on the maiden, And just to stop turning, I'll move it in. Okay, I'm going to take this off the spit as well. So, I'll just get my, I did have an oven cloth, but it's disappeared. No. How's the soup going, John? Okay. So what we'll do is...
20th century.
Yeah, I've got a big Victorian plate here which will stick this on. And just pull this off the... It's always difficult doing this because it's an awkward movement.
Can I come and help you?
No.
You're there.
Okay, so it's probably a little bit overcooked actually, but it'll be fine. It's very difficult to spoil meat in front of this sort of a fire. So both of these have had probably another 15 minutes longer than I would have given them, but they'll still be delicious. This is a very simple recipe, very commonly eaten nationally, and that is the meat is actually stuck with anchovies. It's got anchovies shoved into it. So we'll just let those two rest there. And
where would the anchovies have come from in those days?
From the same place they come from now, from the Mediterranean.
Oh, right.
We didn't make anchovies in England.
No.
We attempted to make things rather like them.
Right.
With various things, including smelts and pilchards.
Yeah.
But they came to the Mediterranean. I mean, the thing about English food is that we produce a lot of our own food, and we had really a Nordic diet, really, especially up here. But for special times of year, we wanted something a bit extra special, so we used things we couldn't grow. Currants, raisins, almonds, rosewater, oranges, lemons, foreign milk, basically.
I thought you brought damsons into the area.
Yeah, damsons, yeah. And so these celebration foods have always got exotics in them. So mince pies, plum pudding, Christmas, 12th cake and things like that. We've always got these. And Christmas was the time actually when you just had those sort of extra things. So we're going to let this rest, which is, this is amazing, this dish. I think you'll all love it. It looks really weird, but it's absolutely fantastic. Okay. Now, on the table also, I was going to welcome you with some punch, but because there were 1 or 2 latecomers, and I'm not blaming Andrew for this. What we're going to do, I think, is have the punch later, afterwards, which I think is a much better idea, actually. We'll have it afterwards, okay? And we can have it with some 12th cake.
Are you actually going to cut that up?
Not this one. I run a course on forgotten Christmas foods, and one of the things we do is we make a 12th cake, and I get them to decorate it, and it's very difficult. So this isn't really my work. It's about 4 out of 10, actually. But it is decorated in the manner of the early 19th century. This has been decorated with moulds that have made all these swags and these little doves.
Is it a real cake underneath?
It's a real cake underneath, and you can taste the cake later. I made another one. It's a hoop cake, and I'll show you. Give me that hoop. Yeah. So
Okay. Yeah.
it's yeast leavened,
Yeah.
and this is actually the earliest printed 12th cake. Although the 12th cakes are mentioned, they seem to go back a very long time. The first recipe actually dates from 1803. It's actually for its 12th cake. It's called the 12th cake. And it was published by a cook called John Mollard, who was a London tavern cook. And that's the recipe that I've made. And it's raised with yeast. So unlike a modern Christmas cake, which the 12th cake became, the 12th cake was popular until about 1850. Had its heyday at the end of the 18th century and in the early 19th century. And we had much more fun on 12th day than we had on Christmas Day. Because you ate it on, and there was a card game that you played. It was a lottery. You pull the card out of the box. It had a character on it. You might be the king, the queen. You might be Toby Tipple, who was a drunkard.
I was the Queen of Peace.
Yeah, or some licentious creature, you know. And these cards were published, and people would buy them, and they would play this game, and then they'd drink themselves completely silly, usually on something like punch, and then eat 12 cake. And during the middle of the Victorian period, it shifted. The 12 cake disappears, and you suddenly get something called a Christmas cake. And the little Father Christmases and snowmen and that were made out of ceramic and wax, that were put on top, are actually recollections of these things which are called devices which are put on 12 cakes. And the most common decoration for a 12 cake were 2 crowns, because, you know, normal rule was suspended for the day, so there was anyone could be the king, and anyone could be the queen. And in the French tradition, they used to put a bean and a pea in the cake. Whoever got the pea was the queen, and whoever got the bean was the king. They didn't seem to do that anymore. A lot of people say it happened, but there's no evidence for it. It was usually a lottery. You chose your character from taking these cards. It was much more interesting than the French tradition. And they made crowns with molds. These are completely made out of sugar, and they've actually been made from some late 18th century molds, which are actually in an exhibition at the moment in Washington. The molds, I lent them to the exhibition, and they've been gilded with gold leaf. They're not edible, but you could eat them. But that is actually an authentic 12 cake. That's what a 12 cake looks like.
Have you got molds for these?
Yes, I'll show you them. Yes, yeah. I collect them. This punch is a very early punch, and punch again is something that isn't really understood. We tend to sort of float bits of fruit in it, and it never happened. What they wanted was a citrus flavour in the punch, so what they did, they used to do it with several orange peels, which tends to, after it's been in the alcohol for a while, starts to make it bitter. So they had another idea like a tea bag where you can pull that out easily. And if you look at Hogarth's etchings and paintings from this period, you'll see these fine possessors of orange hanging out of the punch bowl. And this one is made with arrack. This is a very early recipe. It's made with lime juice, arrack, and hot water and sugar. And that's it.
Arrack?
Arrack comes from the Coromandel coast. It's from Sri Lanka. It's a fermented palm. The top of the palm tree, they have kind of the leaves are in a big, thick, succulent bud, and they cut it, and the sap comes out, and they ferment it. It's a sweet sap.
How on earth did we ever find that out?
Well, we didn't find it out. The people who lived down there did, and it was called toddy. So the person who sold it was called a toddy walla, which is a very common name in southern India. And they fermented the toddy and turned it into arrack. They distilled it. And so this is made with arrack, which was the original punch.
How did you get hold of it?
I got some in Sri Lanka
Oh, right, okay.
in the summer.
Yeah, yeah.
And so this is the most authentic punch you will ever drink.